Today I'm talking with Vincent Zhang. He's on an incredible journey of trial and discovery. Let's see how God is leading him through whatever comes his way. Vincent, thank you so much for joining us.
It's such a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Where did you grow up?
I originally came from mainland China.
Right.
I did primary school and preschool there.
Okay.
And grew up as an atheist, was taught evolution from a very young age.
Wow.
Mum, Dad and I immigrated to New Zealand when I was 8 in the year 2000.
Right.
And when I arrived here, went to primary school and they taught atheism as well. So, yeah. Okay. And I've just always thought that was fact and that was science and that was the truth. So I just went with that. I put all the religions on one shelf and said, this is man trying to contemplate his death, and maybe I'll try one of them when I'm old and gonna die. But right now, I'm just gonna have fun and live life.
How was your early life growing up as a child in New Zealand?
It was good. I did well at school. I was quite mathematically well-to-do and quite talented at art, and not too bad at sports either. So, and I was quite healthy, never drank, never smoked, never did anything like that. So just a normal childhood.
And do you have much family in New Zealand?
Only Mum and Dad and I.
Right.
We only us three came over.
Okay, so why did you leave China?
China is a very stressful and competitive place. There's a lot of people there, and there's a lot of competition there. I remember in primary school, the workload I got in the holidays was the same workload I got again in university over here.
Wow.
And it's always just competition. I was in one of the top classes, so every single person got 100%. Except 2 or 3 kids, and we were like, what are you doing? Are you Wow. So it's a very step on everyone's toes to get your way kind of place. So Mum and Dad, I guess they didn't want me to grow up there with all the stress and all the competition. So they sought a better land.
So from an atheist background, what was it that drew you to God and to learning about Jesus?
So my story is a story of 2 cancers. So I had my first cancer when I was 15.
Wow. At
that time, I was going through high school. And I thought life was just pretty good. And when I was 15 and when I started playing sports, I started getting this rash all over my body. This pins and needles burning rash all over. And it kept on happening. Every single time I needed to sweat, it would be this thing just appearing and just me suffering. And so we went to the GP, he did this test and that test, but he couldn't find out what it was. So at the end of that year, Mum and Dad sent me back to China to find out what it was. And after a few tests and an MRI, they found out that it was intracranial non-genomatous germ cell tumor in the middle of the brain on the pituitary gland. Wow. I had 5 little tumors in the middle of my brain. And they caught it quite early the first time. It was malignant, it was aggressive, it was very rare in New Zealand. 3 people get it every single year. Wow. And it was inoperable. So they got me to come back here to New Zealand to get the treatment. And being a young person and being really proud and thinking that I was good at everything, I thought that I'll be good at cancer as well. I thought going into that place, I wouldn't come out the way that you see people come out in cancer commercials, bald and frail and broken. I was thinking I'll come out with a full head of hair and proud and strong. And there was 4 rounds of chemotherapy and then 8 rounds of radiotherapy. The chemotherapy was 1 week each with 2 weeks of rest in between. And I was fine for the first day. After the second day, I started getting nausea, I started getting weakness, I started feeling really bad, all my hair fell out. And it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. I just wasted away on the hospital bed pretty much. Wow. And even I remember I would stop ordering food at day 3 or 4. I just couldn't stand it anymore. And even the meal cart passing by my door would urge me to vomit up whatever that was left on my empty stomach. I lied awake in the bed thinking that this was just hell on earth. And all I can do is carry it and bear it. At the 3rd round, I told myself I don't want to go through the 4th round. And by the 4th round, I told myself even if I have to die, I will not go through chemotherapy ever again. Because it was that bad. I remember they before the chemotherapy, they inserted a Hickman catheter into my chest that it ran from here to here. And then there was like 2 tubes for the chemotherapy or blood test to go through. And by the 3rd round, I looked at myself in the mirror, this bald, frail, broken person. I was like, with this like tube dangling out of my chest, I'm like, who are you? I do not recognize you anymore. After the chemotherapy, they did the radiotherapy, and radiotherapy was quite easy because there was no nerves in the brain, and so the 8 rounds just flew by, and they told me I was in remission. Wow. And after cancer, they have like a period of 5 years or so where you are in remission, where the cancer has a likelihood of coming back, so they monitor you periodically with blood tests and that kind of stuff. But I thought that, this was just a big accident in the universe. I should not have gotten cancer this time. I will never get cancer again, ever again. So I went back with my life. Went back on with my life. I skipped a year in high school because I couldn't do that year with the chemotherapy. I went into university, and first year in university I got like an A average. 2nd year, I started getting C's and D's. And I was thinking, why am I getting I was getting really, really tired. And I never thought about the cancer coming back. So the time came for the periodic blood test to come. And we went to the blood bank to do that. And we did it, and afterwards, for some reason, they did an MRI on me. And I was still oblivious. I was like, this must be what they do in the 4th year. And after the MRI, I saw Mum coming out of her bedroom holding the phone crying. And I was like, nah, that's not me. That's some distant relative in China. That's not me. So after the first cancer, Mum and Dad did a lot of reading about my type of cancer. And they realized that if I get this cancer and I get cured and it doesn't come back, I'm fine for the rest of my life. But if it comes back, I'm dead.
Really?
Because it spreads really, really fast. Mum knew the news, but she didn't tell me. And it took until we went to see the doctor. And usually there's like the registrar doctor who tells you, everything's fine, your bloods are fine, go back to your life. Except this time it wasn't the registrar doctor. It was the heat treatment doctor of my first cancer. And he had on his computer a picture of a brain. And when I sat down, it was a doctor telling his patient that he was gonna die. 19 years old. Gonna die. And all of my hopes and dreams smashed into 1,000 pieces on the hospital floor. He said, even with treatment, chances of survival are rare. And because they can't radiate on the same spot within 8 years, the only treatment plan that there was chemotherapy, stem cell harvest, and then high-dose chemotherapy, and then stem cell transplant. And even with that horrible, horrible treatment, chances of survival are still rare. The cancer, which was 5 little dots in the first cancer, had spread everywhere in my brain. And they said that if it went to my spine, I wouldn't even need treatment. They'll just send me home to die. So here I was, and hitting the brick wall of death as an atheist. And it's the scariest thing in the world.
Yeah.
And I told the doctor I'll think about what I'm gonna do. And we went home. I couldn't sleep for 3 days and 3 nights. I was just in this loop thinking about why I'm in this situation and why this world is like this. Like, why do we find ourselves stuck in this hope called life that offers so much and yet produces so little? Why is there hope, joy, peace, all these things that seems to have substance, and yet it just ends in the nothingness of evolution? All I am at the end is dust. My life to me is pointless. And I guess in those 3 days, I realized that there had to be a God somewhere. I just didn't know where, because I realized that if it's evolution, even if I live 50 years, 70 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, if I die the death of evolution, my life is pointless from the day I was born. I'm just a being destined to become dust. What's the point? Might as well just kill me at the start. So, before I knew the news about the second cancer, I invited a Christian friend of mine to come over and have a meal. And when he was at our house, I told him that my cancer has come back and it was everywhere in my brain and I'm probably gonna die. And he said, do you want to pray? Do you want to believe in God? The Christian God? I was like, yeah, sure. If he's real, I'm much better. If he's not real, I'm exactly the same place I am. Absolutely dead. So we knelt and we prayed. And that night I slept like a baby. And the next day I had a peace and a joy that was beyond anything I've ever imagined. John 14:27, peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you, not as the world gives, I give unto you. And we sat down as a family, mum, dad and I told him, I think God is real. And I think because he is real, I should go through that horrible chemotherapy. And if I live, I'll live for him. If I die, I know where I'm going. And before, like, just when the doctor told me that about my situation, I was flicking through television channels and I realized that everything in this world was pointless. This news will tell you, like, you know, oh, this guy bombed this place and like 50 people died. I'm like, depressing. And then another channel will be like, oh, buy this useless thing that you'll never use. And then I just kept on flicking through channels. Nothing gave me peace until I came to channel 26. And that was the very beginnings of First Light. All they had rolling was moments of peace. Okay. And I really like photography and I really like nature. And I just stayed on that channel because it gave me a peace in my horrors. And so when we started the treatment, First Light started showing sermons. And I'm like, ooh, I'm into this now. So while I was getting through treatment, every single day when I come back home, I'll just watch First Light 24/7. And God would answer every single question I had through First Light. Lord, I thought the earth was created in 7 days, but evolution says millions and billions of years. What do you say about that? And he would have like a programs explaining like scientifically and coherently that it's not actually what the facts say. Or like I had always had this thing about hell where God would send people to heaven when they die and to hell forever. Or like, how could you say that you are a loving God if you just burn people who are mortals forever and ever? And he would answer through First Light.
Praise God, yeah.
And so many questions he answered back then. It was so amazing. And what's the most amazing of all is God made chemotherapy like heaven. No nausea, no vomiting, nothing like the first cancer.
Is that right?
Every single person in that room was feeling miserable. And then there was this guy asking the nurses and doctors, do you believe in God? Do you believe in God? He's amazing. He's amazing.
Wow.
He is absolutely amazing because he is carrying me. And so eventually the normal dose chemotherapy is finished. And in the midst of that, I got baptized, and the friend that prayed with me I got baptized in that Sunday church. But because I was going through treatment, I still had that line running through my chest. So I couldn't get baptized by immersion. Mum and Dad could, because they got baptized with me. But by that time, First Light has taught me that you need to be, the biblical way of baptism is immersion. Everything else is not biblical. I'm like, and then I asked the pastor, can I get baptized again after I have all my cancer treatments? And he's like, nah, one Lord, one faith, one baptism. I'm like, that's not how you use that verse. So Mum and Dad got baptized by immersion, I got baptized by sprinkling. And that's always been on my mind afterwards. So after that, I went into high-dose chemotherapy, which was lethal. They did the stem cell harvest beforehand. And then, I had to be in seclusion, where like the room was like, they can't have any bacteria in their room because the high-dose chemotherapy would get rid of all your stem cells.
Okay.
So you would lose your ability to produce white and red blood cells, so you don't have any immunity to any disease.
Is that from the bone? The stem cells from the bone?
Yes.
Wow.
So like, they would kill you to save you, in a way. But even while my body was dying, the cancer experience with God was absolutely amazing. Like every single moment was just joy, 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 joy. And I guess the most powerful thing is, like, as a worldling, I've always been scared of dying. Because I didn't know what was, like, I didn't want to become dust. And I didn't want to become, like, go to hell or anything. But here with God, in God's arms, on God's shoulders, I didn't mind.
No fear.
I didn't mind if I died. I didn't mind if I lived.
Wow.
Everything was just peace.
Awesome.
And eventually the high-dose chemotherapy finished. And after the high-dose chemotherapy, they do the stem cell engraftment. And I remember my stem cells engrafted back into my body really, really fast. And I was asking all the nurses and doctors, is this a miracle? Is this a miracle? I was absolutely sure that it was a miracle, because I shouldn't be alive. Some people don't even live through the chemotherapies. But I just wanted them to know. And so afterwards, I went home and I kept on watching First Light. And when I got well enough, I started going to the Sunday church. But that baptism, I didn't get baptized properly, was always on my mind. And eventually, God got it into my thick head that Sabbath is Saturday, not the Sunday. Oh, really? And because it's Saturday, and because you know the truth, you should follow it. Okay. And then when we started wanting to go to a Seventh-day Adventist church, I remember the Sunday church pastor, I don't know where he got it, but he got one of our like Secrets of Prophecy seminar like posters, and he held it up at church in front of everyone. And he said, don't go to this church. And at that time, he was still our pastor, so we trusted in him. So, like, we would go past Seventh-day Adventist churches, and it would have that sign outside. And we're like, okay, don't go to that one.
Okay.
And that was another reason why we went to Ilam, because Ilam had it inside we didn't see. So once we went in, we can't do anything. We're like, okay, might as well go through. And then after we went through, we're like, they're fine. Yeah. And so we started going to Ilam Seventh-day Adventist church. We started going to Ilam, and we would go to Sabbath church and Sunday church. But because I was in the recovery phase, it was really tiring. So I stopped going to Sunday church. Mum and Dad still went to Sunday church, but I would just go to Ilam. And I guess coming from that Sunday church with a lot of youth, I needed a place where I could call home that could introduce me to all their stuff. So we eventually found out there was more Seventh-day Adventist churches in Christchurch, and we just church hopped until we found Bishop Dale. And the youth said hi, and that's why we stayed there.
Wow, that's an incredible journey, eh? Wow.
Praise God.
All right. So was it that you kind of described this peace that came into your life? Was that basically immediately after your friend had that prayer with you?
Absolutely.
Just realised there was a God, and just this realisation came to you, and
Yes, it was not even like realization. It was like I had that night of sleep that was supernatural because I couldn't sleep. I was thinking about why am I here, what's gonna happen to me, and all that stuff. But this night, on the fourth night, when I prayed, I just slept like a baby. And the next day, it wasn't a placebo effect where I thought I would believe in this God and I would just have peace. I didn't expect anything from it. But nothing had changed. I still had a bajillion tumors in my brain. I was still gonna die. But by the fifth day, I was happy as a clown. Just joy, 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 joy. Even though what faced me was either death or horrible chemotherapy. Everything was just absolutely peace and joy.
Wow. And I'm guessing part of that was realizing that there was a life after death, and this was not the end of it all.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was hope
Yeah.
beyond the grave.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about Christianity, eh? That's the thing about Adventism as well. We have this hope
Yeah.
that this world is not our home. Whatever happens to us, this world is not our home.
Yeah.
Like we're going to a better place, and whatever we do here has an eternal significance. So that's how I live my life now.
Amen.
It's with an eternal significance. Like I'm talking to you right here, right now. It's because this is gonna help someone.
Amen. Yes. Yep.
And every single move we make, every single word we speak, it has a significance beyond us, and that's so powerful. Back in the world, I was just living for myself. Everything was me, and that gave me periodic, very small satisfaction. But with God, it's like a consistent satisfaction with peace.
I heard this amazing quote one day from a top tennis player, and he was striving to get to the top, and he said that one day he eventually got there. He won the world championship, and he had this amazing quote. He said, "When you get to the top, there's nothing there."
That's what I always feel in this world. Like you would aspire to, like, you know, the new PlayStation or the new mountain bike or the new whatever, and then when you get it, maybe 4 hours, maybe half a day, maybe a day, and then it was like the second day you're like, this is not that great anymore.
Yeah. Not much has changed.
Yeah, everything just crumbles through your fingers in this world. But with God, it's eternal. He's eternal. And he loves us with an everlasting love, and he's our Father. And how great is that? And I find whatever trials I face, he is there with me. In the world, there's no one with you. You're just there to carry it all by yourself, especially like a cancer. Like mom can't help, dad can't help, all the money in the world can't help.
Yeah.
But with God, he is there, our ever-present help in our time of need.
Wow, what an amazing journey. That's awesome.
Praise God.
So you got baptized the second time then?
Yes.
Or the first time, truly?
Yes. So it was really funny because when I met that friend at Bishopdale, he said hi, and I was like, oh, there's a friend here. I can stay at this church. And right after the sermon, when the service had ended, I told the pastor, like, can I get baptized? Because that was always on my mind. I need to get baptized. Can I get baptized? And you can see this pastor like searching. It's like, who is this guy? Where did he come from? Yeah, we'll do some studies. I'm like, I don't want to do studies. I want to get baptized.
Okay.
But yeah, we did studies, and I learned so much more about God.
Oh, yeah.
And he baptized me.
And I'm guessing as you're going through those studies, you'd learned a lot of it from First Light already?
Yes.
Wow, yeah, it's a powerful way.
That was amazing as well. First Light has so many amazing sermons. And such good preachings and such good teachings. So many, like, you know, biblical truths. And that's another thing as well, because I remember going to the Sunday church and watching First Light. The Sunday church pastor would always his sermons would be just one verse that he pulls out of the Bible. And he says what he thinks about it, pretty much. With First Light, these pastors would be like, this verse, and then we go to this verse, and then we go to this verse, and then we go to... I was like, oh, this is amazing. And I was like, I never could work out, before I knew the news about the Sabbath, I never could work out, why can't our pastor preach like that? You know, that kind of thing.
What would be a Bible verse or some inspiration from your walk that you could share with someone who wants to know Jesus and wants to follow the path of life?
I would like to share Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the thoughts that I think towards you, says the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you a future and a hope. And through my walk with Jesus, the more I know him, the more I realize how desperately much he loves us. And how he plans these little blessings in our lives so that we can be able to see, oh, look, good Lord, you did that, you are amazing, Lord. And also, what's so powerful about God is that he can turn the hardest of trials into the greatest of blessings. This guy sitting before you here shouldn't be alive. And even if he was alive, without God, he would have been like a depressed wreck in the corner hugging his legs and waiting for it all to end. But I can share all of this with you right here, right now, with a smile on my face, because God has turned the hardest of trials into the greatest of blessings. And that's what's so amazing about him.
Vincent, you have an amazing experience with God. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Oh, it was not a problem. My pleasure.
Thank you. Isn't it amazing how through God Vincent lost his fear of death? I challenge you, give Jesus a go today. You'll be amazed at what fears he can help you overcome.